Okay, guys, here's the first video. We're going to delve into some meat. I'm going to try to keep these videos short, so because I respect your time, um, and I want to play with the comments. So I'm going to bring up a lot of stuff in these videos that are big questions. I'm going to make statements about them. Um, if you have an opposing viewpoint or you disagree, please respect that I've been doing this for a long time. So I want to hear your comment because you'll help educate me. And if you can present a well-reasoned argument to contradict what I'm saying, or maybe just to um, expand what I'm saying, I want to hear it. So thank you for participating. Anyway, today we're talking about the method of visual art analysis. And there are three biggies. These are the three rules: medium, subject, and content. And yeah, I'm reading. I'm reading from a paper that I prepare when I do talks, either at schools or at openings or whatever. Sometimes for collectors. So this is to teach or to talk about how do we look at art and why. So the three distinct aspects again: medium, subject, and content. The first one is medium. By that, and I'm speaking generally to visual artists here, so you'll have to mold it to whatever you're doing. For some people, medium is the dance, it's the choreography, it's all of those. The medium could be the stage, the clothing you wear, enough said. Uh, for a visual artist, it's what you're creating the image with and what you're creating the image on. For me, it's acrylic or oils, but usually it's acrylic. So when I look at my work and I look at other people's work, um, what I'm first of all looking at is what medium did they use? Is it ink? Is it paint? Is it whatever? Paper mache? And once I establish that, then I look at, well, how did they work with it? What's their craftsmanship? Well, are they using the material in a way that's innovative, that makes me go, wow, I never thought of doing that with that? Or, for instance, with acrylic paint, acrylic dries really flat and it makes nice straight edges. So illustrators use it a lot because it doesn't drift, it stays flat, it blah 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 blah. It's not glossy unless you make it glossy. So if I'm looking at a painting and it's done in very hard edged primary colors in acrylic, I'm like, okay, you used acrylic. All right, let's move on to the next point. Medium, not so exciting. The subject then is what's being represented in the work. And I don't care how real it, from total hyperrealism all the way to complete abstraction. One thing we need to clear up in the vernacular of art is that abstraction is what we do all the time. So even if we call it super hyper real, that's an abstraction. But anyway, without getting into huge, because that could be a 2-hour dialogue right there. What is it? A chair? Is it a human being? And then the same questions. How is that represented? Is it difficult for me to decipher? Is it obvious? Is it in juxtaposition to something else? Is it in fact an excuse to play with the medium? And now we're going back and forth between the medium and the subject. And okay, the medium wasn't so impressive, but the way he or she is rendering this thing with that, that's kind of interesting, you know. So there's some involvement. These are different degrees of involvement, and this is what art is about: how you get involved with something. Then the third, which I believe is the most important, although you can't take the other two for granted. If you're working in oils and you don't know how to mix the oils and you keep coming up with that ugly olive gray, no matter, or black, no matter what colors you throw at it, you're making what's called in the art world mud. And so you may do a really good job of representing a chair or a human or whatever, and it just falls incomplete because the medium is so poorly handled. So it's important, the medium and the subject. But all of those are in service to number 3, which is content. In other words, uh, what is stirring you about the image? Now, this is the third is the trickiest. To me, this is where the art happens. Um, Ideas, ideologies, questions, provocations, all of that aside, I mean, we can put a lot of, and people do, put a lot of fancy language around this content idea. So I want to simplify it a little bit. Basically, we've all heard at some point in our lives the old adage, who knows if it's Chinese or Indian or Western philosophy, proverb, whatever. The bottom line is, if you walk 10 people through a backyard to see a fountain, and then you sit them all down away from the fountain and you kind of interview them each about, did you see the fountain? First question. What was your impression of it? How do you remember it? What did it look like? You're going to get an array, and no two of them are going to be identical. There may be similarities, but they're all going to have differences. Why? Because this is what makes us human. We experience the world through our unique filters. Our filters are made up of our memories and our understanding of those memories and our experience, previous experiences grafted into those memories, which granted we manipulate at night in our dreams. So there's a wonderful line in a movie, Lost Highway, where Bill Pullman's character is asked about, they live in an affluent household, and the detective asks him, he goes, you don't own a video camera? I mean, especially today with cell phones, I mean, you don't do video? And Bill Pullman's character answers, yeah, I don't like video because I like to remember things the way I remember them, not necessarily the actual way they happened. His point being that video is kind of a telling, I would say, a forensic document that says, here it is, argue with that. Whereas our memories are a little more fluid and fluttery than that, and they interpret and they add things and they subtract things. And I wanted to make that quote to you, not only because it's a wonderful quote in the movie, but when you're thinking about art, you are looking at a footprint, an after effect, a result of someone's, the artist's, process of memory, recollection, and involvement in a new experience, and that is the making of the work. The making of the work is its own experience. And although every artist draws from their life experience in the moments they create, there's an arc of time required to create a work of art. That arc of time allows the mind to collect. I think in Buddhism, the teaching is that we have 180,000 decisions we make in each moment of our lives. Well, that's a really mathematical, graphic way of interpreting how much our mind jumps around. So, point being, content is informed by that. But please don't ask an artist, what were you thinking, or what were you trying to say? And this is why I say this, because what you bring to it is your own set of filters, your own life experience, your own memories, and your ability to abstract and figure things out. So in fact, it's much more valuable to you as an artist and as a collector and as a viewer of art. It's kind of a vulnerability, but you have to open your life up when you look at a work of art and ask yourself, what's moving inside of me? Anything? if nothing's happening, if there's no emotion, if there's no even if it doesn't anger you or do anything to you, walk away. You're not. This is a waste of time. But if there's anything going on of a reaction, an interpretation, a sympathetic emotion, empathetic disturbance, then stay longer and contemplate what you're experiencing at that moment. This is art. This is the moment I would quote art with a capital A. Art is that action, that activity, that involvement, that interaction, that dialogue. You hear all the time about visual language and the language of art. This is what we're talking about, not what's on the canvas. What happens between the artifact, the artwork, and your life experience, your filters, your mind, your life. That's where the value is in art. That is content. And yes, some of it is informed, of course, by the artist's hand and by the artist's mind and the artist's life. And some of those things, if you get the opportunity to talk to an artist, may be very parallel, very congruent, or they may be very dissonant. But please take that step first. By asking the artist what they were doing, what they were thinking, and so forth, you're taking a shortcut and you're actually slicing off the biggest part of your experience with the art, and that is your engagement with it. If you want to know what the artist was thinking and doing, then your engagement's with the artist, not with the artwork. You see what I'm saying? So content, super, super important. And I think, that's 12 minutes. So I'm going to call it at that. I'll see you in the next video. Nice to see you. Be good. Stay well.